an OK Boomer chat, and this is a really special one. We tend to use that line every now and then for some of the episodes we do, but this is truly special and first of its kind in the fact that we are actually live. Usually we record and we cut out a lot of what we say, and the final product you see is like half of what we had actually spoken. But today we are just going to let our intrusive thoughts be there as it is, whatever comes to our mind first. That's what we are going to go with. Hopefully our first instinct is the best instinct. We already have like one person watching live. Yay. Welcome our first live call viewer. Anyway, that said, uh, what are we going to talk about today? The topic is road less taken. So when we think of road less taken, there are usually only one or two things that come to our mind. If you are an English geek, you are likely thinking of one Mr. Robert Frost who came up with the road less taken. But since then, this has been embraced by anybody who wants to do something bold and unconventional. A lot of successful people embody the spirit of the road less taken, from Zuckerberg dropping out of Harvard to build Facebook, to Steve Jobs dropping out of his school to build Apple. We all have like different examples that we keep going back to, and we kind of use these examples as frames of reference for whenever we are at a crossroads ourselves and we want to decide, hey, should I take this aggressive, ambiguous, less taken road, or do I want to do something that is more conventional, which is more safe and more guaranteed to give me success in a long enough horizon. Um, so that's what we are going to dissect. We have like a bunch of, for the lack of a better word, case studies of people, uh, who took the bold road, succeeded, or maybe there are many we don't know who never made it. We also have people who took the conventional road and still came out on top. So if I'm thinking about this decision, what are some of the factors that I should be considering? So that is what we are going to talk at length today. Ashwin, I know this topic is very close to your heart because in this group, you and I are probably the two people who know a lot of stories like this because of our love for sports. Sports is very much synonymous with people taking the road less taken, Sachin, or you would give like numerous other examples like that, right? Even Dhoni for that matter. And
Mm-mm.
so, in that way, the topic is little emotionally charging for us because of the people that we support. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Chris. And to everyone who's watching and listening, happy 2025. This is our first episode for the year, and we are back after a good break. Yeah, let's get into what we would like to discuss today. Yeah, like Bot said, it's close to the heart because of sports. And I also feel there is good enough or a lot of people who just followed their passion before they even knew it was their passion or before like for most of us personally by at least the age 2025 is when we kind of contemplate or understand what we even like, right? But there are a
The
lot of people,
quintessential quarter life crisis.
but there are enough examples that like a lot of you might think know of them as a very successful person in their field, not necessarily the rich person, right? But the successful person in their field. But lot of them will not have a formal pursued education. um, like Sachin Tendulkar is a pinnacle of the example in India, right? He just followed cricket. And I remember in my childhood when like parents forced me to study, or when a lot of people just tell us, "Hey, studies is your only way to success." The one person I'll always think of is Sachin. Right? He succeeded. I don't think he even finished 10th grade, but he was one of the successful person in the like in 90s. If you didn't know Sachin in India, like you didn't even live in India, right? Um, yeah, like what made those people take that path? Can Is it for everyone? And you can think of a lot of names like that, like A.R. Rahman, Saina Nehwal, for example. And even if you look around the world, Steve Jobs did not study. There's just Zuckerberg just dropped out of his education to start Facebook. There's just a lot of examples like this. But when I think about it, or when I look back, if I had just dropped out and just did something, will I be successful, or is this what I should have done? I think that's what all of us are going to talk about in the next at least 20-30 minutes. Uh, let's actually take one or two examples, or actually, first, let me kind of share what I think, right? Uh, it I don't think it's for everyone. Uh, that's my kind of view here. Just because Zuckerberg was successful, or just because Steve Jobs was successful, or A. Rahman started early on, it doesn't mean someone can just drop what they're doing, or someone can just drop their education and just pursue what you like. You should be okay with that 99% failure rate. There are chances that you won't be successful. We all of us know of people who are successful, but to every successful person there is just so many others who did not succeed. But if you go the conventional route of a lot of others, like take for example our tech founders, right? Flipkart, or even like across the world, many of our people who did study and then work and then learn from their work and then moved on into their entrepreneurial journey or what they're very passionate about. At that stage, even if they fail, they have a backup option. But imagine if Saina Nehwal did not do well, or she didn't win early on through her early teens, what she would have done later. Like, do you go back to school in your 20s and 25s and then start your career because you did not study? What are your other options? What are your alternate routes? So yes, starting early on really really has that advantage, because there's nothing that there is a saying in Tamil. I don't know if you guys can share an English equivalent of it. Aindil valayadu, aimbadil valayadu. What is the
What didn't sow when you were five won't,
you're literally translating it.
you can't reap when you're 50.
So yeah, if you know that's your calling, that's I would say yes, go for it, but you should be are you okay with it not happening? If that is yes, then I think you can still give it a try. But yeah, my take is I don't think it's for everyone, but you can always take inspiration from
Yeah,
these set of
absolutely.
people.
One of the points that we want to have more clarity on by the end of this discussion is, hey, we quote so many fantastic examples like Zuckerberg or Bill Gates. Are we really in a position where, just because, let's say, it doesn't have to be the field that they succeeded in, right? You could be like a really good street cricketer, but does it mean that you are in a position to dream of playing for India, um, being that top 1%? Do you have the same leeway that a lot of those successful people that we look up to had back when they were growing up? So you want to like list down those factors, you want to like analyze that critically and logically, as opposed to being emotional about it, right?
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Shankar, I think you also follow a lot of people around tech. I think just like how we are inclined to sports, I think your interest is in tech. What have you observed from all these tech founders who had a good conventional path to success and people like Steve Jobs?
Hmm. I don't know about, I mean, I was just thinking, I think when you're younger, you have a very rebellious attitude, like all of us do. We retain that even when we are older, but it kind of wanes. So I think it is that rebellious attitude that makes you feel like, why should I do college if I can do other things? But I was also thinking, hey, if at all someone young is really watching this episode, would what we are actually saying make sense to them? Because they'll have high confidence, high conviction, and unless they see things for themselves and learn some lessons, they
Mm.
will really not know whether they're thinking right or thinking wrong. So, or whether the path they want to pursue makes sense or not. And to be honest, I've also thought about like not doing college at all when I was in school.
Oh,
And thankfully, I didn't choose that path stupidly. Because I mean, I used to write blogs and things like that, and a lot of other bloggers also like they used to make money. And I remember someone named someone. He was having this site called Tech Bus or something. He actually didn't go to college. He he was blogging. He was making money, and then he went on to do like now he does has like a more conventional job, but it worked out for him. But in hindsight, I think what I'm glad for is the support system that college gave you, the friends that college gave you, and things like that. Uh, I think those are irreplaceable. So, I would say that um, if you want to follow an unconventional path, make sure that you can handle a lot of pain and suffering, and you can handle a lot of moments of doubt. Uh, right? So, if you don't have, like, I know a friend who now is the head of product somewhere, but for like 3, 4 years right after college. I think he dropped out also. 3, 4 years right out of college or after dropping out, he was pursuing a consumer startup idea that didn't work for like 3, 4 years.
mm,
Uh, he had high convictions, high beliefs. He really wanted to make it work. Look at the amount of uh, injury it would have caused to his confidence, right?
yeah.
But he still stayed on despite this. So I think the risk is okay, you have high conviction, but you have a lot of confidence as well. But if it doesn't work, it's going to eat into your confidence. You're probably, in all likelihood, not going to have any money unless you have like a uh, wealthy family backup. So I think these are the trade-offs. But I also think if you're young and listening to this, none of this makes sense, right? No matter, like, it's hard to discern. Like, if you're really high conviction and you're really high energy and you're thinking about these things, none of what we are saying probably makes sense to you because
Yeah, I think if
at a
somebody is
younger age,
really
it's
that
very,
into they are going full throttle on doing something. I don't think they are sitting and listening to this
yeah,
podcast that talks about whether
correct.
I should take this road or not.
So I
But
think, yeah, I think if you're older, I think if you're older, you've taken the conventional path, and now you're trying to take an unconventional path. I think what what would make sense is, do you have a backup? Are you willing to stay by your conviction? Like I was reading this article yesterday where they spoke about how pessimism is easy and optimism is really hard because everybody will question you. Things will go wrong, and you still have to be optimistic and make sure that uh, hope that things will work, right? So I think if you're taking an unconventional path, what matters is, can you stay with your convictions when nobody believes in you? Do you have a backup? Can you take the stress? Right? Can you take the pain and suffering that comes with taking that unconventional path? I think that's what happens. Like what I would recommend is probably like do the conventional path, make a lot of money, or make a good amount of money, get financially well settled, because financially being well settled gives you optionality, right?
yeah.
So you can choose to
Shankar,
play
I think you
whatever
kind of
game you
like
want to play.
finished the entire podcast there. Everything that we wanted to cover in the next 30
Yeah,
minutes.
but yeah, I
Thank you
went
for
on
like
a riff,
this.
No,
but
no,
yeah, this is
yeah,
what
yeah,
I
that's
think.
fine. So, Shankar, like on what you said itself, right? Yes, like there should be some minimum backup that everybody should have, but there's also this other side of if you fail early, it's easier to come back rather than
Yeah.
failing later, right? So, how does someone balance this, or what is that minimum backup that someone should keep in mind? Like, is it education or is it money? Is it network or is it a mix of all these three?
I think definitely money matters. So I would any day say uh, build wealth and some financial success. and a good network of people, because uh, when it fails, you need to be able to like reach out to some people and get another job or get another opportunity. I think that matters a lot. But I think the other thought I had in my mind as you asked this question is like, does it really make sense that you have to fail early? Yes, it makes a difference. Like
Hmm.
if you try something, fail early, try something else, it's probably less risky. But I think once you have the financial backup and you're reasonably healthy and you're young with your ideas, you can afford to fail much later in your life at 40s as well, uh, much more comfortably. So if you look at Parker, Conrad, or G, or anybody, right? They started. I think Parker started rippling when he was 40. G started fresh desk when he was 35 or something. I don't know. So I think playing a game that puts you in a position of safety makes a big difference, and you can use that to afford to fail safe
Hmm.
and fail repeatedly later. The only thing that you have to be cautious about is as you grow older, your mind tends to be closed about new ideas, etc. So there are some trade-offs that come with that. You probably may not find a bunch of people if you're starting a startup. You probably may not find a bunch of people with as high energy as you among your peer group. But I would any day, for most people, I think the better option is grow older, get options, get financially stable, do whatever the hell you want, versus like while you're younger, try so many things.
So you
Unless
you
the
stick
idea
more
is
towards
super
a
exceptional.
conventional path.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
So you okay? If Zuckerberg had thought this, then we wouldn't have Facebook today.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
So, but how do you predict that you are Zuckerberg
I'm really sorry if
or
Zuckerberg
anybody?
hadn't thought this, we would still have Facebook today. It would just be have been operated by the Winklevoss twins.
I mean, I think it's also possible that I've become more conventional over time.
Hmm.
But so I don't know. If you had asked me the same question 15 years ago, I would have probably had a
Yeah, I
different
think
answer.
among this
I think
group, you're
all of
the
us would
only
have
one
had
who at
different
least
answers.
thought about not doing college.
Yeah, and I also had a question there. And we have seen a lot of examples of people taking unconventional routes from, the US, right? But, as somebody watching from India, how easy it is for them to take an unconventional route and succeed there, especially with most of our population lying in the middle class or upper middle class category, right? So while we talk about is it okay to take it, will I actually have the leeway as somebody from India who majorly belongs to a middle class category to take an unconventional route in the first place?
Who wants to go?
Body. That's okay.
I'd like to add, answering Kitna's question and also adding another point, right? Like, if you have wealth, if you have the capital to start something, it makes sense to start something when you're much younger, and you have the risk taking capability is much higher when you are younger. As you grow older, you have more responsibilities, more dependencies. So the natural appetite for taking risk goes down. So if you really want to do something, and I would say the first thing starts in planning. Like, you have to have a vision, have what you want to do mapped out. You don't have to have like a 5 year or a 20-year plan or anything like that. But at least directionally, you want to know where you want to go and what you want to do in that direction, and course correct as things happen. So the one thing that I think is more important for all of this is right place and right time. Right, like you can have all of this. You can have capital, you can have skill, you can have success, all of that, and still not make it big. Right, so there are uh, certain things that just like there is a very small window when everything align and the right time, the right things happen. So I would say taking a risk is less on how much we plan and how much we calculate, and more on like there is some luck in itself. So
Yeah,
I
I
would
think that's
say,
a fantastic point because when Shankar said when you're young, you're rebellious, you want to do things, I'm not sure if it's entirely accurate because we keep quoting these famous examples, right? When Bill Gates decided to drop out of college and start Microsoft, he had literally like a 6 months to 12 months window before the tech giant at that time, IBM, would have went ahead and did what Microsoft actually did. He had to be in that exact time, and he
Mhm.
needed to make that split second decision of, hey, there is enough potential for me to actually go pursue this full time. So I'm not sure if it's always about rebellion is as it is about being the right
Right place
place,
at the right time.
right
Yeah.
time, like Bobby said.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, again, if we ex- take another path from tech, right? Even in other field, it's always about riding that wave, like we always see, but also to do with, hey, yes, because of this decade, this became a thing in the place that I'm in. I was able to leverage that, right? But today, if you try and take inspiration from it and follow the same path, one, you have way more competition than what we had before.
Yeah.
Second, I don't like that wave is not there. Now that path has become a very conventional path. Like today, to become a music director, like how A.R. Rahman became in 90s, like I don't think that's you can follow that path today because today the field might be very different how it is. Like I'm just
One
uh,
one thing I
yeah,
will add is you have to build or plan for something that doesn't exist today, that is in the far future, right? So if you are the person who is innovating, or if you have that, you know, first movers advantage, then that route becomes viable. But today, if you are only going to do what people have already done before, it doesn't really add any credibility to you, or doesn't put you in any advantage situation.
I think the other thing, maybe this I covered when I spoke about things previously, but I think you're going to feel like a misfit when you take that unconventional path, and you have to be really okay with
okay
it
with it.
until you succeed, right? If that's not something you're used to, let's say you meet a bunch of people, right? You're doing something on your own. They're going to talk about college, they're going to talk about their degree or their conventional path all the time. And you're not going to have any of that, and you should be okay with the fact and comfortable with the fact that you're a misfit.
And
That's a
people will
feeling that
keep calling
you,
it out. Hey, you can take
yeah. So
the society enough that
yeah,
wherever you go, whenever you step out, people will keep mentioning that to you.
yeah. So that's also a
Yeah,
challenge.
that's also true. See, when taking unconventional route, having that peer pressure, it helps in a really positive way in that you know that somebody else is in the same boat as you are. Just like how when you go to college and you have all this network and all the luxury that the support system affords. One common theme that I notice when somebody take the road less taken is, I guess it's more applicable to business than it is to sports. They don't usually do it by themselves. There is always one or at least uh, two partners in crime. So Jobs had Wozniak, um, Gates had Paul Allen, and if you want to move away from tech, the Sony founders, they were two people like who were working together before they decided to start up. Knowing that you are in it together on WhatsApp, you can quote a lot of examples where it's a duo or trio coming together and saying, "Hey, I know it's really risky, but at least I have like somebody that I would trust my life with, running through the wall along with me." And
Yeah, yeah. And I would say for sports people and other fields, it's actually that duo is their parents or the family or people who are supporting. Because without them, that following that passion is just very difficult. Like yes, it's one thing for you as an individual to decide, hey, yes, this is what I'm going to do, right? At least in Western countries, maybe it's little more little straightforward. For Zuckerberg, maybe he can take that call, right? Or he just decided. But like in our region or the culture that we are in, I don't think it's our decision. Like yes, even if you tell your parents that hey, this is what I'm going to do or this is what I want to do, 90% of the time or even 99% of the time you can just the
I'll
response you'll get is hey, just focus on school.
I'll add one point tangentially to what Shankar and Ashwin said, right? It's not just society pointing out that you're a misfit, right? Like even like in very practical terms, you will face a lot of roadblocks unless you have a support system that can help you, right? Like it will be very hard to get loans. It will be very hard to find a house. It will be very hard to find alliances. So these are things that in a traditional society, if you follow the conventional route, it may be easy. So if you have a support system which can augment this or support you during this, it makes it easier. But if you don't, then it adds to all the pain and suffering that Shankar mentioned, right? It don't makes it
Mm.
worse.
Yeah, I actually know someone from my relatives circle that when they were looking for the partner, right, in an arranged marriage setup, they did not want to give the girl to someone who is running a business. That was just a criteria. I mean, they
No
needed someone
guaranteed
who's on a
salary.
job.
Yeah, no guguaranteed salary. That is
So
a big
Basically, I
problem,
feel
no?
like we're we're recording 20 minutes of discouragement for anyone who's
no,
No,
taking
that's
like an
uh,
wants to take like
the-
an
Wait,
unconventional,
but I
but
would like
that's
to
what it is.
ask, if somebody probably is already on a conventional route because we are, advocating for it, right? So they have been looking to switch to probably starting a business right now or looking to do something that they have always been passionate about. It could be music, like you said, or anything else that's not relevant to what they studied. What would be your advice? They must be absolutely passionate to cut off whatever that they are doing to move there, or even to have that thought, right? So what is it that they need to focus on when they do it? Maybe because we have
I
been
would
discouraged so far, let's just be encouraging for at least last 5 minutes.
the positive way to look at it, I would say, is like have a stable conventional route as your main uh, goal or path, but allocate some time in your day, in your week, right? Like spend some time and energy doing something on the side, and do it at as like put as much effort as possible, but as little risk as possible, right? So try something, do it for free, do it for a small audience. Like let's say if you wanted to become a journalist or a sports podcaster, you can start a sports podcast on the side, like how Chris Watt has ICW, right? Like the thing is, you can do it when you have a job. You can still allocate time on the weekend. You can still focus your energy on it. The minute you know that that is gaining steam, or you reach an inflection point, then it's worth investing more time. Like it starts off at say 90-10 or 80-20, and then eventually the tide shift and it becomes like 20-80 or 10-90, and eventually 100% into whatever that side uh, path is.
Hmm. Got it, buddy. And Chris, do you have anything else to add here? Because you're on that path right now where you have like quit your job and moved to the UK
Yeah,
to
I think it's
pursue
a
what
good
you
shout out from Body. Not because it's about me, but because when I was talking to a lot of industry veterans, people who are into sports media, Body and I have a bunch of friends who are doing really well and top of the field in sports. Um, I spoke to a lot of people like that before making that decision, and the one common advice that I got from people, or what I could crystallize from what everybody said, was, hey, you could either do whatever Body just said now, keep hammering away, bit by bit, like Tim Robbins from the Shawshank Redemption, and eventually when you realize that there is enough momentum, you can go full throttle. Usually it takes like 10-15 years to get there. That is one route. And in India, people who do sports, that is outside the field, who are like
Mm.
the support system to the sports ecosystem, they usually take this path where they have a day job and while they keep doing something else. And then the other advice is, or you could just go do the studying, where you can, it's a hack in a way that you could probably get there faster, but the trade-off is the cost of a degree, right? That is what
Mm.
I was left with personally when I spoke to those people. And I figured, because I had spent 5 years of my career working, but that had nothing to do with sports. Maybe I didn't have the luxury of uh, keep working at it on the side. So I figured I was okay with that trade off of money for
See,
setting
even
some.
for you, it would have been, if I don't do it now, then might be late for me to do it, right? And even if it doesn't work out, like let it be now than 10 years later,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Yeah. See, again, from looking at all these people, right? If even if we look into tech, non-tech, um, and people who tried enough to be successful, uh, one thing that's like I would recommend for people, right? If what you are looking at is on the tech side or from your job, hey, after working for 2 3 years here, I found my calling in this, so this is what I want to do. That I would say still is a little conventional path, because you've learned your skill or where your passion lies, and you've seen things, you've experimented, you've learned on at someone else's cost, so you still minimize some risk of failure. But the other set of people where your passion is just completely different from what 90% of the people get into in today's culture of where we are, right? Like, we are not going to get into how our education system is, why we are defaulted to engineering or medical or whatever. um, if you are really convinced in your teens or even late in teens, where, like, take for example media, or hey, like, I want to be an actor or even media host or whatever role you want to take, I'm very good in photography and this is what I'm going to do, right? There is also an option of education in that field, which I don't think people have even explored, or I don't think any of us here can even have context there, because we have not studied. But there is always an education in the field that you want to get into, like if it
Wait,
is
isn't that
sports.
exactly what I'm doing though?
Yeah, like but you still got into later. What I'm trying to say is, even before you finished, like you still got into it after finishing your 4 years of whatever engineering or arts, and then you worked and then you got there, right?
You're
But
referring
if
to like this A.R. Rahman has an academy, no? Swarna Bhumi, SAM,
yeah,
the
yeah,
Academy of
something like that.
Music, where you can
Or
learn
FC
music as a
Madras
degree.
If
for
music or
kids.
sports is your passion, like it's okay. You will not end up being the gold medalist in Olympics like Saina Nehwal, right? But you can still be someone or something in badminton. Like there is still some sort of education that you will gain in that sport. Explore that. Like there is just being a player or winning gold medalist is just one part, that's pinnacle of success. But if you don't establish a base form, like I wouldn't say formal proper education, but a knowledge of what that field is, that's when it gets difficult. But if you start acquiring knowledge in the field that you're passionate, if it's music, it's music. It could be tech in music, it could be an instrument, it could be whatever, right? But there is still an education in any field that you look at. It's just it's not published, it's not for everyone, it's not an academy that you can go to. But there's always an education in something, and you should definitely focus on that. Like otherwise, when you fail at one thing, it gets very difficult when you don't know the field.
That's a very good point, Ashwin. You highlighted.
I mean, if I can summarize that, you're saying if you follow a path that leads you to education of like domain context, even if you shoot for the moon and don't reach it, you may end up still within that domain in some other role. But
Yeah,
if you take it as a blind risk, then you don't have a safety net. Like you fall out, it's completely out of the domain. You have to go back to something else.
Yeah,
that's exactly true. Yeah.
that's very nice.
Okay, let's see if we can summarize what we have spoken over 30 35 minutes. So I think we can all agree that financial independence or freedom, fallback, whatever you call it, that's undoubtedly the most important factor when you're trying to make this decision. Do I take the conventional route, save up enough money and jump in, or do I have enough enough of a fallback to just pursue my dreams right away?
I would say this is still subjective. Like all of us will have our perspective, but uh, yeah, like how much
Yeah,
money
yeah,
is
yeah.
enough
You're
money
just
for
putting it out there.
sacrifice?
You
Yeah,
have
it's
financial
one thing to
factors.
It's a
consider.
Yeah,
factor to consider. Yeah.
It's a factor
yeah.
to consider,
Like
but
because there are a lot of examples, like Mr. Beast, your most famous content creator. The guy is revolutionizing the industry of content, and he doesn't come from a fancy background or anything. Even when he didn't have any money, he still wanted to drop out of college and work on his videos because he was clear he's going to do what it takes to eventually make it there. Like
Hmm.
a lot of things fell in place for him to be the number one creator, but regardless, he went into it like head first that he would have ultimately ended up making a living out of YouTube. So what else? What else are we saying is pursue it as a side project and wait for it to gain enough momentum, gauge that, and then decide if you want to do that full time.
I think for people who are pursuing an unconventional path later or attempting to, right? Except maybe like people who are into athletics and sports and things like that, I would actually say if the path is going to put you in a trajectory where you're going to be generating less income than you currently are, that's not, that's only a hobby. Uh, and it should continue to be a hobby or like a part time thing. But if it's going to be potentially putting you in a place where if there's likelihood that you can get into a place where it's making you a lot more money, then you should consider it being full time. Like I see absolutely no point in pursuing an unconventional path that does not put you in a better financial position than you currently are, because if you're not, then you have like fewer options every single way you think about it. So yeah, that's just me.
I would say
What is
Yeah,
evaluate your probability of success and failure. If it's 141 two-thirds chance of losing, then
Yeah,
don't go for it because the
keep it as
numbers
a
never
side
lie.
project.
okay. I think adding to both, I kind of disagree with Shankar. Uh,
that's like
yeah,
the opposite of adding turbo.
yeah,
How we
in kind
started
of
off with your
see, I
sons.
agree to an extent with about like, see when I say yeah, I'll get to it, right? So, but Shankar, see in terms of immediate runway or whatever it is, you might not make more money from what you really like, but ultimately,
Correct.
if that is what gives you happiness, if you think like what am I doing sitting in front of laptop, like I know enough people who think I don't even
Um,
want to sit in front of laptop, but even if you give them like in India take 1 crore salary, right? They will still do it. But are you doing it for money, or
yeah, that
like
that makes
I might
sense.
play
I think.
sports and take 50% of the pay, but end of the day I can just sleep with satisfaction, right? So
Yeah,
that's
I
just
think I was probably talking more about people who can do their job well, like it, but want to pursue something that can put them in a worse trajectory
So
financially. But
it's
I
I
mean,
think
if
it's the
this is
law of
not the thing
averages.
absolutely for you,
yeah, yeah. That it's different for
Can I
different people. That's why I say disagree. Yeah, yeah. Go for it, buddy.
try to articulate? So Shankar is saying if you are in a field where the mean or median, if you are closer to the mean and median, and if that is giving you a comfortable income, remember that if you go to a
correct.
non-traditional field, you need to be in the really extreme. You need to be in the top 0.001% to even make it successful. So the odds are always going to be against you. So optimize for the numbers.
Okay, okay. That is where I'm getting to. Uh, Someone who goes the unconventional way, if you're going for the money, there are more chances that you will not end up succeeding. Like to be honest, that is how I think. The reason you're
Mm,
taking an unconventional path is because that you need to have that conviction in what you are doing first. Like this is I am doing this for a bigger cost than me getting rich or me accumulating money, right?
yeah, that makes
Like that
sense.
minimum guarantee should be there. Like you have still have to survive every day. You need to have roof and food and shelter, whatever it is. But yeah, like if you are optimizing for numbers, like that word caught my attention. So you don't have to optimize for money when you take that route. If you're optimizing for money, take the conventional route, because
I mean,
unconventional route
if it
needs,
is,
yeah,
if it has to be your livelihood, then evaluate what your choices are.
yeah, yeah.
That's
That
what
that
Shankar is
field
trying
can
to say.
only pay you so much. See, if you are playing
Ah,
cricket, it'll pay you more. If you are playing what did take any sport, golf, right, in India, like hockey, like for example, like it might not pay as much as cricket pays, but if you are passionate about hockey, you have to play hockey. You cannot end up being a cricketer. Like if hockey is the game you want to play. So yeah, that's one. And the other part where you said, I guess, one-fourth chance, like I wouldn't even say one-fourth chances of succeeding in an unconventional path is way lesser than that. Be okay with, like, yeah, like I know this podcast might come across as discouraging, from anyone to try, but that's ultimately the point. Like, even after listening to this, if you are still convinced, then only then you should go for it. Like, because you will hear like thousands of people talking against what you are doing, uh, if you say I'm going to start a company at 18 or 19. So like,
All right,
yeah,
can we run this home? I want to end it with a quote that is very appropriate. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinion drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. The one and
Steve
only
Jobs.
who?
Steve
Steve
Jobs.
Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Okay. I
All
thought you
right.
were going to say ChatGPT.
Oh my God.
Your
Because the
secret.
quote was so
There are
wordy,
four people
but
watching and we can't even cut it out.
uh,
All right, folks, thank you for taking the time.
For
Fun
the
discussion.
5, 6 people who watch live, thank you. Shout out.
Yes, really appreciate it.
Don't
Shout
thank
out
you.
to
don't
people.
forget to like,
Uh,
share, and subscribe our channel.
yeah, please do that. We should get live more
and if
often.
anyone listening has any topic suggestions that you want us to give our perspective, just
Yes.
share in comments or reach out to us. Yeah, but it was nice chat.
Thank you so much, those
Good chat.
who spoke as well as those who watched.
Thank you.
Also, those
Have
who
a great
asked
day.
questions.
Thank you.